We will call our February meeting of our Pinal County Community College Governing Board meeting to order. And the first item of business is to install three governing board members. There is David Waldron, who has been appointed to fill the position from the Superstition Mountain area. And we also have Gladys Christensen and Deborah Banks, who were elected during the last election. I'm going to propose that we stand in place. I will go up to the podium and I will administer the oath of allegiance, and you can follow along as we proceed, if that would be all right with the three. Thank you. If each of the three of you would please raise your right hands and repeat after me. I state your name.
Dave Waldron,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the same
to the same,
and defend them against all enemies,
and defend them against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge the duties of the office
discharge the duties of the office
of member of the governing board
of member of the governing board
of Central Arizona College,
of Central Arizona College,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God, or I do so affirm.
So help me God.
May I offer my congratulations to each of you and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Dan Miller will lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. There are no items in the call to the public, so we will go on the agenda to the action items, starting with item number 5, the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are consent matters unless they are removed from the consent agenda at this time. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any governing board member. Consent agenda items will be approved by one motion, and there will be no specific discussion of these items. Items removed from the consent agenda will be approved as a non-consent agenda item. What would be the pleasure of the board?
I would make a motion that the consent agenda be approved as written.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay? Motion carries unanimously. Moving then to item number 11, tuition and fee schedule 2019-2020. Mr. Wadka.
Thank you and good afternoon, Governing Chair, Governing Board members. Congratulations on your new appointments. Madam President, Madam Secretary, and all colleagues and guests present this afternoon. First item on this agenda is tuition and fees. It is an action item, a yearly action item that we bring to the board at the February meeting. For the 18-19 academic year, we kept tuition at $86 per semester credit hour. Question? You can't hear me? Is this better now? Okay, I'll get closer. The board's goal in the monitoring report has been to be at or below the rural Arizona Community College average. So therefore, the current year that we're in, we kept our tuition at $86 per credit hour on the in-district rate. And we are also proposing now, headed into the new academic year, 19-20, that we also keep the tuition at the $86. Therefore, no increase on the in-district rate. And that will keep us still at or below and actually achieve a greater gap in the difference between some of our rural community colleges. The out-of-state rate, we're proposing at $172 across the board, meaning no matter how many hours you may take, how many credit hours you would take. Before that, there was a different amount that kicked in after so many hours. We're proposing that it be a steady 172 for as many hours as you feel to take. There are some minor changes in the fees. You'll see them highlighted in your packet. There's also a schedule on the EMS and fire science courses. There's a few changes there. And the board per semester for the residence hall rates is going up about $232. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have on any of the tuition or fees. Otherwise, this can be an action item for your consideration and approval.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from members of the board relative to tuition and fee schedule 2019-2020? Please go ahead.
Just a comment. I think it's great that the college is, this will be the third year without an increase.
Second year.
Right. What? Second? It'll be going into the third, though, right? We didn't have an increase.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So, but anyway, I think that's indicative of the continuous improvement that our president is leading. And then I know the staff is on board and found ways to do more with the same. So that's probably not recognized as well when we keep the tuition the same. But I think the overall student experience is greatly increased. But we're not spending any more money to do that. So thank you very much.
This is an action item. Pleasure of the board. I need a motion.
Motion to approve the tuition schedule as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second? I have a second. A motion and a second to approve the fee and tuition and fee schedule 2019-2020. Further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by saying nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item is the Arizona Association of Community College Trustees report. Dr. Banks.
Just a minute. It's going to come up on the screen. 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. at the Community College Federal Legislative Conference. Technically, it's called the American Association of Community College trustees. And what you see up on the screen is the skinny down framework consisting of 4 areas that the various colleges across the country, as well as the ACCT staff, is lobbying for. And just briefly, I'm going to go over this. There is a handout, and I'm not sure where it is. What? In the board packet. Okay. It looks like this. It's called the National Legislative Summit. And I urge those who are brave enough or don't have enough reading material at night to please read through this very thoroughly to see what your reps in DC are doing. Now, on the screen, I'm going to take this by each of the 4 categories. Strengthening Pell Grants. There is a major movement underway to strengthen Pell Grants in 3 ways. One is to have short-term Pell Grants for students who are pursuing credentialed courses that lead to immediate employment or currently address the employment that they're interning in. The second is to increase the Pell Grant award. It is clear that the colleges across the country, except for California will always be the exception, tuition rates are up and students need more money. Now, the last Pell Grant, the second chance, is very interesting because the ACCT has run a field study for 1 to 2 years with 65 community colleges across the country that have partnered with prisons, and the monies that they're using are Pell Grants going to the prisoners. I have more material on this if you would like to see it, but it is one of the hottest topics on Capitol Hill because in 1994, the legislature cut the second chance Pell Grants, and the ACCT wants them reinstalled. Now, under investing in education and workforce development, there are a number of issues. And just briefly, I'm going to say that the ACCT, and I should also say ACCT/ACC, which is the larger organization including the entire college structure. Anyway, you have sufficient funding for higher education and the workforce. And this is going to be a very interesting area, not only at the Fed level, but also at the Arizona level, because one of our well known senators in the state is chairing higher education and the workforce committee, and he's from Saddlebrook. His name is Vince Leach. Thank you. Okay. Then there's a call for more money for access and success. That is for the TRIO program, the Gear Up, the C Campus with an I, and also the three grants, the Pell Grant, the SCOG grant, and the federal work study. The third issue is strengthening resource institutions. This is the Title III award, and they want increased funding. And then bolstering job training and career and technical education, more money. I know this sounds like a Democrat agenda, but it's not, because we really need the money. Our third cluster, there is an opposition to new risk sharing penalties. And I'm not going to get into detail about this because we've got too much and I have to move on. Reduced debt for community college students, and then there's the enhancement of transparency and data. The ACCT office does not believe this one will fly. And I won't get into details again. The last cluster is very controversial, and more support for dreamers. Well, the students that have been impacted by the DACA rescission, the ACCT and ACC wants to get monies restored so those students can move forward and become U.S. citizens. This particular approach may not fly either because of the amount of money that would be needed. Thank you very much. And I do encourage you to read that summary report that I held up. That's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Dr. Banks? No questions. Thank you very much for that in-depth report. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is report from Central Arizona College President, Dr. Elliott.
Thank you, President Gibson. Good afternoon, board members, faculty, staff, and guests. I have a couple updates. First, the legislative update, and bear with me, there's quite a few pieces of legislation that I want to update you on. First, it's House Bill 2040 that authorizes community college districts to offer 4-year baccalaureate degrees that are accredited by a regional accrediting agency and approved by the U.S. Department of Education. House Bill 2268, it makes supplemental appropriations of $20.9 million from the general fund to community college districts for specific purposes. $7.1 million to Pima, $8.8 million to Maricopa, and $500,000 each to Cochise, Coconino, Gila, Graham, Mojave, Navajo, Pinal, or Central Arizona College, Santa Cruz, Yavapai, and Yuma. House Bill 2682 requires community college districts to provide a tuition waiver scholarship to a child or dependent of a former member of the U.S. Armed Forces whose disability rating is 30% or more and who is an Arizona resident. Senate Bill 1195 requires that all state agencies, including community college districts, purchase at least 10% of their energy from green sources by July 1 of 2024. Senate Bill 1048 requires community colleges to grant admission to students who are under 18 years of age and who achieve either a minimum score of 720 on the Scholastic Aptitude Test or a minimum score of 12 on the American College Test, former known as ACT, or as known as ACT. This bill has already passed the Senate. Senate Bill 1191 requires each community college district to administer Arizona Works Community College grants for students who are enrolled in career and technical education programs at a community college. Grants must be used to pay for tuition and fees. Eligibility requirements are being established. And so that one as well is in a education review committee. And the last one is Senate Bill 1217, entitles any person who graduates from a public or private high school in Arizona to the Arizona High School Graduate Tuition Rate in an amount prescribed by the Community College District Governing Board. And that has passed the Senate. That particular bill is introduced to address the DACA students and the DREAMA students that Dr. Baines was discussing. Any questions about the legislative update before I move on to the district update?
There is one. Mr. Miller.
Question about the 10% energy requirement. Are we currently supplying the campuses with any green energy?
I believe no. This legislation came up last year as well and didn't get passed. So, good question. Other questions?
No other questions.
Okay, for the district update, the foundation held its annual Night of Stars event on February 15th. We had over 220 in attendance, and the event raised about $24,000 for the foundation and for Promise for the Future scholarship. So it was a very successful event. The college recently received a donation of a loader and an excavator from Vulcan for the heavy equipment operator program and our diesel technology program. Very excited about that donation. Earlier this month, the college also hosted about 200 Future Farmers of America students on campus for their annual FFA Field Day. And as part of the college's Alliance for Innovation and Transformation annual Summer Institute project, the team that attended is in the process of interviewing students about their CAC experience. This information will be used to identify opportunities for transforming the student experience from the lens of the students and the job to be done. And last week, the college hosted Davis Jenkins, who is the author of Redesigning America's Community Colleges, for Development Day. He spent 2 days on campus as well, speaking to people and as well as working with the various Guided Pathways teams. And we're very fortunate to have such a renowned, nationally known leader in Guided Pathways on our campus for that amount of time. And that completes my president's report. I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions? No questions. Thank you very much for your report. Next item is the ERP update, item number 14, Mr. Wodka.
Thank you and good afternoon once again. This is a time in the agenda where we kind of go over bids, budget to actual reports, and ERP, so I kind of put all three into one. In terms of bids, we had none over our $20,000 threshold, therefore no report this month. In terms of our financials, I'll talk on that in terms with the ERP. As you all know, we went live on our Nexus, Finance Nexus, payroll, human resources modules on January 7th when we came back from the winter break. We are now running our fourth or our fifth payroll this week. I'm trying to remember, fourth or fifth payroll. So we've successfully run payrolls now. and we've also run all our purchases. Vendors are now being paid on the new system that started the end of January into the beginning of February. So we're all current with that. What we don't have is a budget to actual report yet. One is that we're still compiling the information in the report writing module of the new system. We're trying to determine what would be the most appropriate report to present to the board, and we're hopeful to have that at the end of March for the next board meeting. However, to say, all revenues have been coming in as expected, nothing out of the ordinary. Expenditures actually have been minimal outside of salaries for the month of January because we did not pay the vendors till end of January to beginning of February. So with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have on any of those three topics.
Are there any questions? I do have one.
Yes, sir.
I know we're in a transition process, and that things can be a little fluid and maybe a little in flux in that transition. My question to you is, how comfortable are you with the information that you're getting out of the new system? Or do you think you're getting apples, or are you getting dates and prunes or something?
We're getting a basket of mixed fruit. To be honest, I mean, no, for the most part, everything is good. I mean, there are some nuances and some things that we're learning that were different from the old system. I think that's just a learning curve that we all have to go through, be it the accounting staff, be it our employees, and be it our vendors. I mean, we're all learning new processes that are extremely reduced on the manual side, and everything is becoming more electronic. So we've eliminated a lot of paper, and we'll continue to do so. Are we 100% comfortable with the new system? Absolutely not. So when you say comparing apples to apples, I believe the basics are there. But do we have complete comprehension yet? No. And we're working on that every single day.
Thank you. As board members,
So are we able to close on any of the financials from previous months? Are we still waiting for the?
Well,
Process.
we're closed through the first 6 months. That was the old system, and I believe the last month we presented financials through 12/31. We have not closed yet the month of January, and obviously we're in February on the new system.
as board members, we are responsible to the people of Pinal County, and they obviously would have great interest in knowing whether or not our financial affairs and our business management and the information that is being given out is correct. And so I think I can't speak for my colleagues, but from myself, I'm watching this process very carefully and relying upon administration to help us to feel comfortable as we interface with constituents.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you.
You can reassure me on that at
Absolutely,
this
sir.
point in time. Okay. Thank you. Are there further questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate the report. Next item is 15, monitoring reports. We're always excited to hear about those, and Mr. Waka is going to lead off, I take, and followed by Dr. Cardenas.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have the first two for the board monitoring reports on outcome number 5, which is environment. Ensure a safe, sustainable environment that promotes learning, communication, diversity, and satisfaction among students, faculty, and staff. 5.1 and 5.2 I will address. That's the campus crime statistics and also the employee satisfaction with campus safety. And Jenny will address 5.3 through 5.5. So the first one, 5.1, campus crime statistics. This is a little difficult to do a comparison because Clery reporting changed for the year that we're looking at there is 2017. You could see that the crime statistics decreased from 16 to 17 because Cleary reporting removed thefts. Thefts are no longer counted on the Cleary crime statistics category. So when we first presented this last year, we had a little trouble understanding why it appeared that our crime statistics were higher than the other community colleges, but it's difficult to say what the other community colleges reported or did not report. And based on the new Cleary changes, it would appear that the other colleges did not report thefts in the prior periods. And just on my own informal phone conversations with a couple of my colleagues, that was the case. So I think we're starting off with a better baseline when we look at 2017, and our crime statistics there show us at 4, and the average community college is about 6. So that's probably more in line moving forward when we report these statistics on campus crime. The second item is the employee satisfaction with campus safety. There we've had anywhere from 64 to 67% in terms of employee satisfaction with safety. And we're continuing to investigate why that appears to be below or much below what we set as a board as a target, and also from our community colleges. We've made a number of changes. I'll go over some of the planned changes and recent improvements that we've made, that hopefully this will be on the rise in the future, since we really do not have many, if at all, crimes on campus. Why our employee satisfaction seems to only be at 67%. If you go through the planned improvements, recent improvements first, some of the major recent improvements, I won't go through all of them, they're in your packet, is with the new construction on our main campus, we did replace a number of old cameras, and we've added new cameras to the facility. We are also doing an evaluation of all of these campuses, which are only, approximately 5 years old, but the technology on the cameras that were put up with this infrastructure is now really starting to be outdated, even though it's been 5 years. So we're looking at replacement over the next several years of cameras on all of our campuses. We've also we have a new police chief that started in August of this year, and he's becoming very involved, quite an active member on our BITS committee. He has also created some new part-time opportunities for police officers, and also overlapping shifts for a lot of the officers during high traffic period times on our campus. Some of the planned improvements going into the future is, like I mentioned, increased security camera coverage, but also, if you've seen the blue towers that are on each of the campuses, we're also going through the blue towers and updating that technology, because a lot of those blue towers, it's been approaching close to 10 years when they were put up at Signal Peak, and a lot of that was still analog versus being on digital and so forth. So I'm not the techie person here, but it's time to replace them, is what I'm told, for better efficiency and better security moving into the future. Increased officer visibility. Our chief is a big proponent of being visible. If you've never met him, he does make the rounds on the campuses and likes to visit with folks. And we are also purchasing for the next budget cycle some additional bicycles. We're going to have a more visible golf cart and bicycle patrols at the campuses as well. And there's a few others there on your planned or recent improvements. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on these first 2 points.
Any questions? Yes.
I have a question about why theft was removed as one of the.
I'm not really sure exactly. It was something through the legislature that they passed that thefts would not be included. I think it had to do with a lot of the prior types of reportings, where what is really a theft? If some student left a book in a classroom and disappeared, was it an official theft report? Was it just missing? There were a number of issues that I know the folks that come down with the Cleary reporting were going round and around with, and they just decided not to include that statistics in the reports.
Yes, Dan.
Can you refresh my memory? Is this crimes? Is the category crimes on campus committed on campus, or is it crimes committed to students, whether or not on campus?
No, this would just be our campus crime statistics.
Okay, great. And then, is there any evidence that there's hesitancy in reporting any crimes on campus by the students? Assault. I know that it's been in the news lately. Things have come up from several years past. Is there any evidence that we might experience that or experience that?
None that I have seen. I know Jenny may want to comment on that since Res Life reports directly to her.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Uh, I know that the student population reflects society as a whole, and we've had in past readings of crime rates on our campuses that have seemed a little bit elevated as compared with our other campuses and community colleges around the state. And we've corrected that because we now are reporting on the same categories that they report on. So I guess my question at this point in time is our feeling that our campuses are safe for our students? And I know that's a general question, but if I were someone sending a loved one to a community college campus in Pinal County, would I feel, could I be reassured that my loved one was going to be safe?
I think you could be very assured. I mean, we've had no major instances in numbers of years, so knock on wood that continues. But that's why I'm kind of surprised employee satisfaction is lower than what we set as a target. Uh, so we're just trying to even get more visible than we already are to see if we could raise those percentages. But I feel that most students, at least the ones I talk to and run into, feel very safe and feel very. If they weren't safe, that they would come and report and talk to the police department if they had any issues.
Thank you.
May I?
Please.
Now, the Clery reporting, every college and university across the nation is required to do their Clery reporting. And so I would challenge you, it's on the Department of Ed website, and you can go up and you can go look at U of A or ASU, Grand Canyon University, anyone that's not us, and look at their campus crime statistics. And I guarantee you they're much higher than ours. And that was why the Clery was started, was for that very reason, is how can I know that I'm feeling safe about sending my son or my daughter or me attending that institution. So it became a federal legislation many years ago to demonstrate campus safety and awareness for that very reason.
Good.
And just one other factor that just come to mind is a lot of the other community colleges, they do not have campus police. They have hired security and so forth, which makes the reporting still has to be there, but the reporting even more difficult as things may not be included. It should be if you have a full-fledged police officer squad.
One last question, if I might.
Yes, sir.
Do our campus security officers feel safe on our campuses?
Well, let me ask two that are in the back of the room. You two feel safe today? Brenda? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Board President, members of the board, Dr. Elliott, colleagues, students, and guests. I am not Jenny Cardenas, as most of you know, but I'm sneaking in here for a little piece of this presentation. So I'm Mary Kay Gilliland, the VP of Academics. So I'm going to speak very briefly about the student educational experience, which is outcome 5.3. And if we can go back to 5.3 or go to 5.3.
It's up there.
I'm sorry, we are there. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking right at it. I'm looking at the very top one. So the general question is, how would students rate their entire educational experience? And please keep in mind this includes many, many pieces of that, not just the teaching and learning, but the experience in the classroom and at the college. And so there's a lot packaged in there. The board goal is for the board expectation is for us to be at a 95% satisfaction rate. I'm sorry, at a 95% satisfaction rate. And that is not a target that we have reached, nor have any of our peer institutions, but we are approaching that. We're at 86% at the present time, as of 2017, and that's on par with our peer institutions, so we're really neck and neck there. It's a little bit, the graph is a little bit, well, graphs are always a little bit hard to read, just in terms of the percentages, but on the far left, it looks like we were quite a bit above where we are now. I'll just point out that in 2011, we were at an 88% satisfaction rate, and we're now at an 86% satisfaction rate. So it looks like a much bigger gap than it actually is at that point in time. But we're definitely on the increase from the last couple of years. This is measured by a student survey called the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, or CESI as we all know it. So some of the responses may be based on the numbers of students that do actually respond and on a variety of factors going on at that point in time. So anyway, we feel that we are in a good position, but we do expect that we will continue to work towards improvement in meeting that satisfaction for all of our students. When we look at our recent and planned improvements, there are actually two pieces that pertain to this particular part of the outcome. In the recent improvements, we think that one of the things that may have helped at least begin to improve the student experience is that we implemented the co-requisite model 2 years ago, which means that students are not necessarily only taking their basic courses like their math and English, that they can come in and simultaneously take courses that used to have more prerequisites. They can take a course in their area of interest, such as psychology or history or biology or in culinary, any of our areas. And that they can do their prerequisites, some of the prerequisites, especially reading, along with that, rather than having to do them in advance. A lot of best practices indicate that this helps get students engaged, bring students into being very engaged with the college and just happier overall with their experience than when they come in and having to do only those basic foundational courses before they can move forward. So we think that this is an important part of helping to move us up in that positive direction. We also have had increases in or improvements in technology in the classroom, and I believe that that's going to continue to make a really important difference in the student experience. Our students expect a high degree of technology available to them in all respects, especially our newest campuses and our new buildings at SPC have really provided an increase in access to good technology for our students, and great learning spaces, just better facilities overall. So those certainly have contributed to that increase from a year or two before. In the planned improvements, we have ongoing plans to improve technology, and in particular, the computers that are available in the classrooms for the lectures and for presentations and for student work. We now have a 5-year capital purchasing plan. We've been able to identify a lot of the needs on all of the campuses, and so we're working towards improving all of those, and I think that will make a really significant difference. We're already seeing that happening. We are expecting updates in Blackboard, our learning management system, that'll be on board this summer. And we are, as you've heard in other presentations, we're working on guided pathways, which we think will tremendously improve not just outcomes, but the actual experience of students. So I think that those are really big things that are on our horizon. Okay, so I will stop there. Any quick questions for me, or we can actually hold those for the end, I think. Jenny Cardenas is going to come up and address the last two outcomes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. and so there was so much overlap, we decided to kind of split these in half. So the next section that we'll look into is section 5.4, students' educational experience. And the question that went along with this to students is regarding, I would recommend this college to my friends and family. So if you take a look at where we've been in the past, we've always hovered right around 93, 94%. We are in line with our peer institutions in this section. And although our board goal is 95%, which we'll continue to strive for, we are in line with, as I said, our peer institutions in general. Regarding student satisfaction overall and whether or not they would recommend this to their friends and family. So looking at 5.5, this is a section where we're measuring the college's student population as it relates to the diversity in the population in Pinal County. So the governing board selected a target of being at or above the Pinal County population in general related to diversity. And what we've seen is that for the county, we're at 47%. Our goal was 47% being taking a look at where we were last year, and we've actually exceeded that goal and are at 51%. So our student population does replicate our Pinal County population very well. So that's something that we're very proud of. If you take a look at recent improvements for the two areas, we think that a lot of the satisfaction and the reason that we have so many students who are continuing to come to CAC and to really share and recommend us to their family and friends have to do with a lot of the collaboration that we've seen between academic and student services, as well as technology and other areas throughout the campus. We really have been, as Dr. Elliott would say, working as one college and one team and developing programs holistically across the college, opposed to in silos that we've seen before. A couple of the highlights that I wanted to share that we haven't shared too much recently. One is we did go live with our Vacaro chat, our Vacaro web chat. So it's available from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Students have been using it regularly. They go on, there's a little icon at the bottom of each of our CAC website pages. So every page has a little icon of our Vacaro mascot. You can click on it and ask any question having to do with the college in general. So we've had faculty and staff and students and community members. I was on over the weekend and we had a superintendent from another school who asked a question about when our spring break was. So it really gives information very quickly, being that we are open 10 to 10. 10 o'clock at night, we don't have too many students that are asking questions, but we wanted it to be a consistent time period so that students knew when we would be available. It is almost 100% staffed by student employees, so they've gone through a consistent training across the district. We have a large group, again, from student services, from academics, from IT, from all different areas who are working together to serve the students. And we think it's really been a great addition so far. And this is not a busy time for us, and that we're not in an open registration period. So to see the number of chats that we have coming through in a slow time it's encouraging that it's going to go very well, but it's also a little nerve-wracking to see how it's going to be as soon as the schedule comes up in March. So that's really exciting. And an additional way to help our students. And also Vacaro Rally Days and refocusing on our new student orientation and a lot of the different focuses that Guided Pathways are pushing us to look at. We've also done interviews across the district as a whole. So we finished up our last interview today with a group of students. And the questions that we're talking to the students are about how can we transform CAC from the student perspective? And it's been incredible to hear the things that they have to share with us. I joke and tell the students a lot of the things that we've gotten the most out of are the things that they say that they may not think we want to hear, but we really need to hear. They've given us some great suggestions and tips as to what they're looking for, and that many times what we think is best for them isn't what they think is best for them. So they've given us some great information. Our planned improvements that we have coming up include a college catalog redesign. So we really went to our students again and asked, do you use our college catalog? And if you don't use it, why? What information should be there? What should it look like from your perspective, opposed to just being from our perspective? So we had students on the committee, as well as faculty and staff, people from all over the district that came together to redesign our college catalog. And I think everybody will be pretty surprised with how it looks and kind of the feel of the catalog when it comes out next month, or in 2 months, I think. Focusing our academic advising, we've talked about this a little bit more on career focus and really career navigation and helping students to determine, looking at the end in mind and where they want to go when they're done with CAC to help to guide their path, and that goes along with Guided Pathways. Increased student activities and clubs and just lots of different things to get our students engaged. I heard someone, I think it was at our development day, I believe it was a faculty member who described a lot of the things that we're doing is helping to get students tethered to the college. And I really liked that way of describing it, in that we want something that's going to keep them kind of holding on and coming back, and making sure that they don't just take a class and leave, or come on campus for an hour and then leave, but what really tethers them to each campus and helps them to stay. So I think we've got an excellent focus. I'm excited to see where the monitoring reports go from here. Now that we've reported for a full year plus a little bit, to see the increases that we have. So any questions that I can answer?
No
Dr.
questions.
Rick,
Please.
may we go back? I want to do a point of clarification. Can we go back to 5.3, please? I think Dr. Gilliland said that the board had set a target of 95%, but it's actually 85%. And as you can see, we've exceeded that and hit 86%. So I just want to make that point of clarification, because too often we're not at the board's target. So it's pretty good to see when we are. So I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for the information. Are there any other questions relative to the monitoring reports? Please, David.
Could I point out something? Can we go to 5.4? Because the gap looks a little wider than it actually is. Because if you look on the left-hand side, 92, 93, 93, 94, 94%. When in fact, CAC is in there in 2017, 94. So the chart is a little bit weird there. So
Yeah, we can on that axis we can shorten it, the numbers, so it doesn't look so wide. I noticed that as well, but it's how you set up that vertical axis. You can do it by 1 percentage point, 2 percentage points, or 5, and so I'll be more mindful to look at that next time.
well, just so you don't sell yourself short, because
yeah.
it's
Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it, Jenny.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something before we close?
Relative to the monitoring reports?
Is it what? No, this is a board thing, and I was going to ask if you and the board members would consider an acknowledgement time at the next board meeting of Jack Yarrington, who willingly left the board, and he was with us for over 6 years, and there should be some acknowledgement for his activity.
Are you asking me a question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay. I'm asking if the board would consider having, probably a 2-minute acknowledgement for Jack Yarrington at the next board meeting at Signal Peak.
I don't have an answer at this time, but we will take it under advisement and we can talk about it a different time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We've reached the end of our agenda. Our next meeting is March 26th at Signal Peak Campus. And with that, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.